The morning rush was in full swing at Benny's Diner, a small roadside restaurant just outside New York. Coffee machines hissed, plates clattered, and the air smelled like maple syrup and toasted bread. Among the chaos moved a 28-year-old waitress with a tired smile and kind eyes. She'd been working double shifts for months, saving every tip to help her younger brother through nursing school. That morning felt like any other, until a father and his young son walked in. The man was impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit, his wristwatch gleaming like it could pay Sophie's rent for a year. The little boy, maybe 9 or 10, had tousled blonde hair and sleepy blue eyes. They took a booth by the window. The father didn't look up from his phone once. His tone was brisk when he ordered, 2 pancakes. Make them quick. We're late for an important meeting. Sophie smiled politely, jotting it down, but her attention lingered on the boy. He looked pale, too pale. And there was a faint, almost unnoticeable tremor in his hands as he picked up his orange juice. She'd seen kids come through all the time, hyper, sleepy, bored. But something about this one felt off. His lips looked slightly bluish, his breathing a little too shallow. When she brought their plates, she crouched down slightly beside the boy. Hey there, sweetheart. You feeling okay? The father finally looked up, eyebrows raised. He's fine. He's just tired. We had a late night. But the boy didn't look fine. Sophie had a gut feeling, one she couldn't shake. Years of taking care of her sick mother had taught her to listen to that inner voice. She noticed how the boy's fingers trembled again as he tried to cut his pancake. Then suddenly, he dropped the fork. His body went limp. The sound of the fork hitting the floor froze the entire diner. Sophie didn't hesitate. She rushed around the counter, catching the boy just as he started to slump from the booth. Call 911, she shouted. The father stood in shock. What's happening? What's wrong with him? Sophie's voice was calm but urgent. He's going into cardiac distress. Help me lay him flat. Her years of watching her mother fight heart disease flashed through her mind. She tilted the boy's head, checked his airway, and began CPR. Every second felt like an hour. The father was pale, trembling, whispering, "Please, save my son." Within minutes, the sirens wailed in the distance. Sophie didn't stop compressions until the paramedics burst in. They quickly hooked the boy to a monitor. Then one of them turned to her, astonished. If you hadn't started CPR when you did, he might not have made it. The father was speechless. He turned to Sophie, tears in his eyes. You saved his life. She just nodded, shaking from adrenaline. He needs a hospital. Go with him. As they left, Sophie stood by the window, watching the ambulance disappear into the traffic, her heart pounding. She didn't even realize she had tears on her cheeks. Hours later, as the diner slowed down and the lunch crowd trickled out, a sleek black car pulled up outside. The same man stepped out, this time without his phone. He looked different, humbled, shaken, human. He walked straight to Sophie. I owe you more than I can ever repay. My son had a rare heart condition. The doctors said he could have died before we even reached the hospital. Sophie shook her head. You don't owe me anything. I just did what anyone would have done. He smiled faintly. You'd be surprised how many people wouldn't have done what you did. He handed her a small envelope. Inside was a note that read, "For your kindness, for your courage, and for reminding me what truly matters." And below that, a check. Enough to cover her brother's entire tuition and then some. Sophie's hands trembled. Sir, I can't. He interrupted softly. Please, let me do this. You saved my son's life and in a way mine too. I was so busy chasing money, I forgot how fragile life really is. She looked up, meeting his eyes. For the first time that day, both smiled, not out of obligation, but from genuine gratitude. That night, as Sophie locked up the diner, she gazed at the stars and whispered a quiet prayer of thanks. She hadn't just saved a boy's life, she'd reminded a powerful man that kindness still existed in a world too busy to notice. And somewhere in a hospital room, a little boy opened his eyes and asked his father, "Can we go back to that diner someday? I want to thank the nice lady." Sometimes, the smallest act of compassion can ripple farther than we'll ever know. The world doesn't need more wealth or power. It needs more people who notice when someone's not okay and care enough to act. You see, Sophie had been raising him since their mother passed away. Their mom had suffered from a heart condition that took her life too soon. And that experience had taught Sophie something most people never learn, to notice the small signs that others ignore, That morning, as Sophie moved from table to table, a sleek black car pulled up outside. Out stepped a tall man in a tailored gray suit, the kind of man who looked like he'd never waited in line for anything. His wristwatch gleamed under the sunlight, and behind him trailed a boy, maybe 9 years old, blonde hair, sleepy blue eyes, and clutching a tablet like it was part of his hand. They took a booth by the window. The man didn't even look up when Sophie approached. 2 pancakes, he said quickly, scrolling through his phone. And some orange juice for my son. We're in a hurry. Sophie smiled politely. Of course, sir. But her attention lingered on the boy. He looked pale, his lips slightly bluish. He was sweating even though the diner was cool. And when he reached for his juice, his hand trembled. Sophie felt something twist in her chest. A memory. Her mother, sitting at the kitchen table years ago, hands shaking just like that. She took a breath and asked softly, "Hey, sweetheart, you feeling okay?" The man finally looked up, frowning. "He's fine. Just tired. We had a late night." Sophie nodded, but that uneasy feeling didn't leave her. Something was wrong. She brought their order, but the boy barely touched his food. He looked dizzy, his shoulders drooping. Sophie watched from the counter, trying not to stare.